My name is Holly Crawford, and I'm 26 years old. It was 2 a.m. on a Thursday when the pain hit me like a freight train. I had been feeling off all evening, a dull ache in my lower right side that I kept dismissing as gas, or maybe something I ate. But at 2 a.m., that dull ache turned into the kind of pain that makes you crawl across the floor. I couldn't stand. I couldn't breathe properly. I was sweating through my shirt, shaking, gripping the edge of my bathroom sink, and staring at my own reflection like I was watching someone else fall apart. I knew something was catastrophically wrong. I grabbed my phone and called my mom. No answer. I called again. Nothing. I called my dad, straight to voicemail. I kept calling back and forth between both of them, my hands trembling so badly I could barely tap the screen. By the time I reached call number 17, I was lying flat on my kitchen floor, phone pressed to my ear, listening to that same voicemail greeting I had heard my entire life. You've reached David Crawford. Leave a message. I left 3, each one more desperate than the last. In the last one, I was crying so hard I don't even know if the words came out right. I said, "Dad, I think I'm dying. Please come." Nobody came. What happened next, I only know because the paramedics told me afterward. My neighbor, Mrs. Patton, retired woman in her 60s who barely knew my name, heard me through the thin apartment wall. She heard me collapse. She called 911. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was barely conscious. The paramedics said my appendix had burst. They said another 30 minutes on that kitchen floor, and the outcome would have been very different. They didn't say the word death directly, but I understood what they meant. I was rushed into emergency surgery. On the operating table, my heart stopped. I flatlined. The surgical team brought me back, but for a brief moment, I was gone. I didn't see a white light or hear any voices. I just remember a deep, absolute silence. And then, suddenly, there was noise again, machines beeping, someone calling my name, and an unbearable pain in my chest from the compressions. When I finally woke up in the recovery room, groggy and confused, there was a nurse sitting beside me. I asked her if my parents had come. She looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It wasn't pity exactly, but it was close. She told me my emergency contacts had been called and that someone had indeed shown up at the hospital. But before she could finish explaining, the surgeon walked in. He was a calm man, Dr. Reeves, with tired eyes and a steady voice. He pulled a chair close to my bed and sat down, which immediately told me this was not going to be a routine post-surgery update. He said, "Holly, you had a very serious night. We almost lost you." I nodded. I already knew that part. Then he said something I was not prepared for. "A woman claiming to be your mother came to this hospital tonight. She tried to have you discharged early." I stared at him. I thought I had misheard him. Discharged early? I had just flatlined on a table. He held my gaze and continued. "She was told that was not possible, given your condition." She became argumentative with the staff. I felt the room tilt slightly. He paused, glanced briefly toward the door, and said, "But the man who paid your bill said." Before he could finish that sentence, the door to my room opened. Standing in the doorway was a man I had never seen before in my life. He was somewhere in his mid-50s, broad-shouldered, wearing a simple gray jacket and dark trousers. He had kind eyes, the sort of eyes that carry weight without being heavy, if that makes any sense. He wasn't flashy. He didn't look rich or important at first glance. He looked like somebody's quiet, dependable father. He stepped inside slowly, almost hesitantly, like he wasn't sure he had the right to be there. Dr. Reeves stood up, nodded at him respectfully, and then excused himself from the room, leaving the two of us alone. I pulled my hospital blanket up slightly, more out of instinct than anything else, and asked him who he was. He sat down in the chair Dr. Reeves had just left and folded his hands. He said his name was Gerald Mays. Those next 20 minutes were the most honest of my entire life. Sebastian's voice didn't shake once during his vows. Mine didn't either. When we turned to face the guests, most of them were already on their feet, not out of politeness, but because they'd just witnessed something harder to fake than applause. My family left before the reception. I watched them go from across the garden. I didn't chase after them. Standing there with my husband, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not relief, grief. Real grief for the version of that day I'd once imagined, where they sat in the front row and cried happy tears and hugged me at the end. That day didn't happen, but this one did. And this one was mine. We danced until the lights came on and the staff started stacking chairs. Claire cried through most of the reception. The food was extraordinary. Someone's toast made the whole room laugh so hard that two people spilled their drinks at the same time. It was imperfect, warm, and completely, irreversibly real. Here's what I want to pass on to anyone sitting with a version of this story in their own life. The people who love you without conditions show you that love in private, not perform it for an audience. And the people who would stand at your altar with a microphone? They aren't trying to save you. They're trying to remain in control of you. There's a difference. And the moment you feel that difference in your bones, you'll know exactly what to do. I knew. I walked out. And I have never once looked back. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, this channel exists for you. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and come back next week for another story about real moments, real choices, and real people who refused to shrink when the world expected them to.